And welcome back, Dragon Ballers, to Get the Mic, the only show where your host on the left, Owl,
And your host on the right, Brock,
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. In this episode, we're talking about Dragon Ball, as usual, and particularly Dragon Ball Episode 63, which is called Goku's Revenge, Son Goku's Revenge, to be specific. Now, just to recap where we are, we have been in this Red Ribbon saga for a while. We're just about to come out of it, as we've already seen Goku conquer Silver, lose his Nimbus, which we were just talking about in the test. We've seen him go to White, conquer Muscle Tower, defeat Blue under the sea and in Penguin Village. And then now we've seen him run up against Red's ultimate formation of malice in the form of Tao Pai Pai, Peach White White.
it's almost a form of malice that exceeds the reach of Red, right?
Definitely, it does. It doesn't exceed the reach; it exceeds the grasp.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it.
Because Red can't quite figure out that exact thing, but he can buy it.
Yeah, should say this is the malice that his reach can buy, but he cannot grasp.
Yeah. So, just to recap where we're at, if you're enjoying the show, please give us a like, subscribe. We would appreciate all those things. We're actually very slowly but surely growing organically on the channel, so spread the word, share the video. If you disagree with what we have to say, put it in the comments. We'd love to address it. So I think we're ready to get started. All right, let's go. So the first thing we see is that Goku and Tao are on a collision course to confront each other once again. Goku has had the water, Tao has his new outfit, and the land of Korin will once again be their battleground. Meanwhile, back at Red Ribbon headquarters, Red watches with glee as Tao closes in on the last Dragon Ball. He holds up a V with his fingers, and Black mistakes this for a game of rock, paper, scissors, at first holding out rock, and then when Red looks at him sternly, he holds out paper instead, and then Red says, "This is not a game of rock, paper, scissors. I want a cigar," and he demands his cigar.
I think he says something goofy along the lines of like, "Oh, it's okay, rock beats paper," or something along those lines.
Yes,
and
yes.
he deliberately changes the rules of the game for Red so that he would win, and then Red's like, "This isn't a game."
Yeah, Red. That's basically it. And the last thing Black says there is that he wants to know if Red wants to send troops to go help Tao, and Red says no. Tao will be more than enough to deal with this issue, and that's kind of where we square off in the episode. And we've already briefly discussed some of the things in this recap. The new information is here really at Red Ribbon headquarters, and it shows a couple of things, right? It shows how Black is more willing to confront things in a game-like structure and set up that, let's say, hierarchy that is above hierarchies and pay respect to that more than Red. Red has taken it now to be a serious matter that he needs to focus on, and I think that's that cigar thing, because every time we see him smoking a cigar is whenever he is scheming or plotting right towards one of these goals of getting the Dragon Ball.
Not only that, it really focuses on Black's face here and his judgment, because his eyes start to narrow as he's looking at Red whenever this happens. You see this doubtful sort of, it lingers on him, judging him in that way. And I think that's setting up and it's been set up throughout all of the interactions we've seen with him, but right here, in the context of the game versus this is how Red takes himself so seriously, right? Even whenever Black interprets it to be a game, Red is like, okay, you can think this is a game, right? You can think that the context of our interactions pays reverence to the concept of a game, but it doesn't. And so Black is just now starting to be judgmental towards that.
And that's to say that Black disagrees with that concept, that the Red Ribbon Army itself and the idea of the Red Ribbon Army shouldn't adopt any of the values that can be gained from adopting a view which incorporates games.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that plays out in the next few episodes. But that's really, I think, all we see of Red and Black here anyways. So let's go ahead and proceed. At the base of Korin Tower, Upa stares up and thinks about how it has been 3 days since Goku ascended the tower to begin with. And I think we wanted to mention about these 3 days because I think we left it out of our second go around for part 2 of 62.
Right, the idea of 3 days and also 3 nights. Because in the first season, let's call it, of Dragon Ball, which is sort of our Genesis story that has to do with coming to terms with the idea of the other and the knowledge of the existence of good and evil, let's say. We have 3 nights of enlightenment for Goku that we had talked about before, right? To specify, the first
Oh
night
yes,
being
yes.
Bulma's panties, the second night being Midnight Callers, and the third night being the culmination of everything whenever Goku turns into Uzeru and destroys the castle.
The 3 nights, yes.
And so that enlightenment comes to him in a sequence of 3 nights, almost like a prolonged, uh, because it's not like it's just 3 days that encompasses all of the first season, but these moments come in threes, right?
And the 3 days that he spends up on Corn Tower, each day is something different that he learns and masters, right? The
Right.
first day he's there, he doesn't even have an aim towards the sacred water because he doesn't even know what it means, right? The second, and then we have that first night which he just falls asleep from exhaustion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we do see him go through the initiation with the knight and the archetypal female with Bulma and his discovery of how to formulate those aims. And I think it's just 3 days and 2 nights, right?
Is
I don't
it?
think it's 3 nights.
So
The third
there's
night is here.
because the sun is setting whenever he comes back up the tower,
Isn't
right?
the
And
third
the
night?
night it has become nighttime by the time he gets back
Oh,
up the
I see.
tower.
I see what you
And
mean. Yeah,
Korin
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
sleeping, and that's when he decides not to try to take it from him when he's asleep. And then
I
it goes
forgot
to the
about
next
the
day,
night that he
right?
spends on the tower. You're
Mhm.
right. You're right. You're right. But yeah, each one of those is that mastery of one next step.
Right. I want to point out the idea that ties in, of course, to the Christian idea of the 3 nights, which is the resurrection or the journey to the underworld or the whatever you want to call it that we'll get to. But those 3 nights that it takes to integrate all of the unknown and turn it into the profound or the enlightened, right?
Right. And on the third day, Goku rose from the dead, right?
Hmm.
Meaning that Goku has killed off that part of himself that uses games to combat adversarial spirits.
Right. So it seems to be this motif in all different types of mythology, right? Where we see the three, right? You can even think of like in depictions of Yggdrasil, there's the knot, the what do you call it? The Celtic knot of
Not the
three. Or
Celtic
what
knot. That's I don't know.
it's the three
Go ahead.
triangles
Yeah,
anyway. It's
yeah.
like the knot of three triangles,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
trinity at the top of the hierarchy of being, so to speak, right? And so it would make sense that here up at the top there is the three that he goes through
Well,
and
it's this
symbolically does all of those different things.
metaphorical death, right? That allows him to elevate his spirit and elevate with it the human spirit, right? That's kind of what Jesus is able to do with his death. This death hasn't quite come to fruition yet until we see Goku like fulfill this quest he's on. But this is that rebirth that he has on top of the tower, an enlightenment that allows him to come back and be stronger. But we haven't gotten to that yet.
Mhm.
I think I was saying we just stopped on that 3 days. So Tao then arrives and threatens Upa, trying to get the Dragon Ball from him. When Upa refuses, Tao throws him into the tower, like at the tower, to try and kill him.
Right.
Luckily, Goku calls the Keen and saves him as he stares down his adversary, Tao Pai Pai. Now here we also see Upa throw his axe. Right, he is brave enough in his, let's say, his belief still in the both the worthiness of the spirit to improve itself in Goku, and he calls out to his father as well while he's being threatened by Tao here. And I think that too has to do with his still reverence for the paternal, right? Allows him to have the courage to stand up and still try to fight Tao even though he knows it's hopeless. And Goku even comments on that after he saves him. He says, I thought I told you to hide.
I like that because there is something inherent to the heroic spirit in not following the rules that are set for you, and instead in embodying a mode of being that is more courageous than the rules defined by even by the hero, right? You're always going beyond the rules to find what's even better than the rules.
It's
And so
almost too Goku's first instance of being that spirit that someone can then replicate instead of him replicating other spirits.
mhm,
And so he kind of, to me, the line is delivered in a way it's like very, very shocked. Like, I thought I told you to hide. Why didn't you hide? I expected you to hide, right? Because I told you to do it, and
right,
you respect me. But
would
it's
Goku.
the paradox is it's because Upa respects Goku's spirit that he didn't hide in the first place.
Exactly. That doesn't follow the letter of the rule, but the spirit of the rule itself.
Right. And so, and he even says, "My father's murderer is back." Like
Mhm.
he's ready to go.
Wouldn't it be great if this character grew up with the other characters and actually like integrated into the Z crew?
Yeah, it would have been pretty cool, I thought. I
Yeah.
think so, yeah. Anyways, but then the last thing we do see in this little set is that Goku stares down at Tao, and we can tell they're about ready to do battle.
To do fighting.
Anything else you got to say here?
No. It's just finally arrived.
I know
The moment.
it's great. I mean, it's pretty terrific. So as Goku and Tao square off, Tao remarks that it will only take him 3 seconds to defeat Goku.
So that 3 comes back again, right?
Yes.
How Tao makes a mockery of the profound or the enlightened.
And just to mention, this is the second of their 3 fights.
Right.
So Goku, after a brief exchange, gets the better of Tao, kicking Tao to one knee. Surprised, Tao listens to Goku tell him about his journey up to the tower. But afterwards, he dismisses it and rushes him again. This time, Goku blocks his blow with his knee. And Tao is amazed again because the ability to block, right? Goku can dodge, sure. A person can evade malice, but actually withstanding it and coming to terms with it is a more powerful instantiation of one's spirit. And so when Goku blocks it, right, it's shocking to Tao that he is able to absorb that malice that he's embodying.
There's a lot of enlightenment happening for Tao here because Goku is. I think the knee is important, but I might want to come back to it later because that's something that Tao tries to use against Goku. I guess the first thing I want to point out though is that as soon as Tao rushes Goku, he springs back on his tail, right? He leans on the strength of his tail to then pull what looks like a sort of Neo Matrix move and allows him to get in really close and reads his movements very carefully and then launches him up, right? And so we're seeing him able to read Tao and manipulate the situation with his tail.
Yeah, incorporating his tail into the way that he moves well with his spirit, let's say. This time, wait, no, sorry. Upa remarks that this is the opposite of their last fight, having a flashback to when Tao was pretty much kicking Goku's ass.
I think in this segment, he also kicks him up against the tower, right?
Is it this segment? It might be.
It's hard to tell. There's a lot of them fighting.
No,
over the
I don't
next
think.
two
I don't think
episodes.
yet. I don't think yet.
But anyway, regardless, he comes in and initially just trounces Tao in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
He sort of, it's almost like a game, right? But the funny thing is that Goku, he keeps on trying to make it more serious, and we see it in his eyes too, how much more serious he's become. And he's saying, "No, come at me. I thought you were going to come at me. Your 3 seconds are over." And Goku's mocking Tao. And it's a little bit different
yeah.
because we haven't really seen this in Goku so much. This serious and straight to the point. And I think that's that integration that he has. And he's also embodying Korin a little bit there where he's like, "Come on, come at me, come at me, come at me."
Mhm.
You know, I thought you were going to get me.
Right, and it is that it can be humorous, and the way Goku's using it is not as much, but the kind of the way Korin was using it, right, was humorous to us as the audience. Um,
There it is. He kicks him right into the tower.
okay, yeah, that must have been in the first little exchange, right?
I think that's how it sets it up, which is great because what did Tao just do?
Well,
He threw Upa
that's
at the
right
tower.
before right before Goku tells him about him going up the tower. about Goku's journey up the tower.
Now we've seen this a lot of times in the past couple of episodes. People being thrown against the tower, things being thrown at the tower, the attacks basically bashing someone up against the tower, and it's almost like Toriyama trying to beat you over the head with the idea that it's like the breaking on the tower almost. Like you need to pick up your cross. You need to really take on the responsibility of the spirit that you're trying to embody. And so we see that Tao has strengthened his malicious spirit so much that he's like, it's almost like a reflection where he's like, I will throw you at the idea of focusing your spirit because you're so weak in spirit compared to me. And then Goku does it to Tao. He bashes him against the tower.
Right. And that's what ends him up landing on one knee, I think,
Hmm.
there. But after their exchanges, a couple exchanges, Upa has that flashback to when Tao was beating up Goku.
Right.
And afterwards, Goku, in a series of attacks, sends Tao flying. And as he chases after him, he's unable to finish the combo as Tao kicks him. And then Goku tries to do a counterattack, but misses and hits a tree and kind of hurts himself on the tree.
And knocks the whole tree down.
Knocks the whole tree down, yes. And
It's
that and it's
interesting.
interesting to say because this place is surrounded by trees, right? And we have this great tree, Yggdrasil, right? Let's say that's instantiated in Korran's tower. And
Hmm.
instead of throwing his weight against that, it's against a tree, and that tree crumbles easily.
Right. Which is to say that Goku's fortitude is at least that of the tree itself. So, harkening back to the idea that now Goku can put Tao up against the tree. Whenever Goku hits the tree, he knocks the tree down.
Right. It can't stop his path, let's
Right.
say. And I will say too that it is to say that Goku's training with Korran has not fully prepared him for Tao's spirit because there's still a leg of learning that Goku has here, and that's why he
Right.
misses Tao and in this instance. But it's something that Goku, with the knowledge he has now, with the super spirit water, is able to integrate quickly and then able to overcome.
Hmm.
Anything else here?
No.
I think that was pretty good. So back at Kame House, we get some insight to our other characters. Krillin trains with Roshi as Bulma is building a drone that can find Goku. Krillin compliments Bulma's ingenuity, and Roshi comments that she doesn't only deserve praise for that, but her other attributes. Staring at her breasts. So after she slaps the old lecher, Bulma is about to tell Launch about Roshi's scheme with the microband, only to be stopped by Roshi calling out that Goku is here. But there are, alas, only seagulls in the sky, Roshi.
I think he says, and Goku too. That's what I named him in the
Yes,
English.
in the English he says, Goku too. I named them myself or something like that.
I really do love the English Roshi dub.
Oh,
He's hilarious.
Oh yeah, he had fun with it too. But here, I think this is just a small insight, and this is some plot development as well. We see Krillin training on the island still with Turtle on his back and Roshi sitting on top of him.
Hmm.
So that's obviously, I mean, we've already talked about Roshi. We've already talked about Turtle being that instantiation of Roshi's conscience, like his Jiminy Cricket, let's say, his voice of God, that is his attachment to the his spiritual ancestral wisdom that he rarely listens to when he's being lecherous, let's say.
Right.
And so that's on top of Krillin first, right? That idea, Krillin is put below that and needs to lift that up. On top of that is Roshi, which is the spiritual not ancestral, spiritual father himself, sitting on top of this consciousness, right? So it's a tiered system of hierarchy, and Krillin subordinating himself to that is how he is training. Now, this is something I think that Krillin is not getting much out of because, like we've previously said, kind of at the end of the tournament saga, it's something that Krillin's already been able to encapsulate and revere it properly.
This is Krillin's version of refinement, so to speak, right? He is becoming better and better at lifting that aspect of um goodness, even, I guess is a good way to put it, lifting that up on his own. But
Well, it's kind of his path as well,
right,
differentiated from Goku's.
right, and considering Krillin to be, as we've kind of talked about before, this almost ego projection or ego manifestation, it's like it needs to do a lot of work to lift up what it knows about the spiritual father and take the responsibility for it. And so Krillin has a certain responsibility to be tied into this. And remember, whenever Goku had his visions, he tied uh, Roshi and Launch and Krillin all together into one vision as he was tied up with the centipede, right? And these are inextricably sort of connected because it's you've got the spiritual father, you've got this sort of spiritual mother figure, and then you've got what's Krillin. It's like Krillin is so connected to Goku in spirit. It's like they make this little familial unit that represent almost an epoch in the hero's life, and they're all just connected
Yeah, that's
in
almost
concept,
his
right?
that's almost his proper adolescence of integrating socially with peers of his age among the observation of benevolent paternal spirits, which can enrich the experience itself.
Hmm.
So yeah, I totally agree. And the last thing I do want to talk about here is
Hmm.
launches, both launches obliviousness and Roshi's misdirection here, right? Because the couple things, Roshi being blind, right, but also having this the wisdom of the spiritual father knows how to direct attention and command attention. He commands it away from himself by pointing at the hero, right? And it's really the only thing that could suffice to command their attention more so than the spiritual father itself. That's one aspect. The other aspect, like I was saying, is launches obliviousness to it. And that's to say that the spiritual mother will overlook and should overlook flaws that are encapsulated within these aspects of the spiritual father in order to maintain a nourishing setting for, let's say, Krillin, Goku, whoever,
Right.
even Bulma to an
It's
extent.
maintaining the purity
I
of
mean,
Blue Launch, right?
yeah,
Because Blue Launch as an instantiation has to stay um, always in that uh, how would I say, cannot be cognizant of that not really what she would, not malice, but that how would I
it's
even say it? She
all it
cannot,
is it's
because
think about it like this. All it is I guess it's Abraham's boys.
mhm,
It's instead the mother telling Abraham's boys like don't look at your father's nakedness, right?
right,
And that's something that Blue Launch has really embodied here is that like not going to acknowledge that nakedness of the spiritual father instantiated in Roshi.
right, and then Blonde Launch steps in when it's necessary for her to protect Blue Launch from
Perfect.
having
Yeah.
to be able
Exactly.
to integrate that,
It's the
right?
teeth of the spiritual feminine that
Hmm.
allows that. Yeah. Definitely. So they do that. And it happens. But back at Korin Tower in the fight with Goku and Tao, Goku slams Tao, sending him into a hole in the ground. Tao gets up quickly, saying that he is upset about his outfit being destroyed once again. Goku taunts him, saying that he should focus more on fighting than how he looks. And then Tao uses the Dodon Pa against the hero, but Goku blocks it with his bare hands, catching it like a ball.
There's there's a lot to say about this because after these 3 days, all of Tao's intimidation has manifested this one thing for him that he thinks is perfect. It's a perfect representation of how he outwardly wants to project himself. And Goku, with his bare hands, has torn it from him. And we see it actually being
Piece by
shredded
piece, yeah.
as he's punching him. It keeps getting blasted away, right?
Well, that's to say that the outer shell that, let's say, the idealized self, is that a Jungian idea versus the real self? Or is that a different
Well,
psychology?
the self in the Jungian psychology sense is sort of your ideal self stretched across time. And so there is a
No, no,
true,
I mean the exact thing, the idea between
it's the
ideal.
persona versus the self,
No, no,
right?
I mean, hold on, listen, just
Okay.
listen. Because there's an idea of the the interlacing, let's say, of the ideal self and the real self. And the more that is, the less neurosis one will experience. Is that a Jungian idea, or is it a different psychologist? Because I can't remember.
It sounds more along the Freudian lines, but I'm not positive.
That's not
So
Freud for
I
sure,
don't think it's
but
Freudian, but the way
that's
that
definitely an idea.
but yeah, I don't think that that's the terminology that Jung would put it in. Is what I'm saying. Like the way that he would frame that is it has to do with integration and individuation, and so like your ideal self and then your sort of projected or your projected self versus your embodied self. Um, he terms that a bit differently, but I see what you're talking about because this is showing that Tao isn't necessarily as integrated as he thinks he is, and Goku is revealing that nakedness to him, right? Saying that you built up this facade of how powerful your spirit is, and I'm showing you by my actions and without having my own, right? Because he still hasn't gotten a new gi. He still has that hole in his gi. And so it's
Yeah, it's shredding the idealized self that Tao
yes.
has,
And
right?
reducing it down to well, the
Carl Rogers.
Rogers.
It's Rogers, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
cite that properly. But yeah, so it's Carl Rogers, but I think too, like it does fit in Jung's framework. I just couldn't. Well, I was just wanting to bring it up. It was something that I thought about here whenever we were discussing it. But it is exactly that uh, the strength of Goku's spirit and the strength of the hero shreds that even the idea that malice can be harmful towards it. And so his whole idealized self is obliterated here. And so the last thing he resorts to is something which also is encapsulated in his identity, or let's say is a part of his identity, and is a instantiation of the malice that he idealizes himself to have.
I want to tie it into that idea with the tailor that we talked about in the last episode as well, right? Because Tao is the malice that Red's reach can buy. And it's funny because these 3 days that Tao has spent, he has focused on what his reputation can buy for him, right? He hasn't spent those 3 days improving himself. He focused someone else's will into building this for him. And over those 3 days, as a reflection of that, Goku has actually spent his 3 days focusing himself. And so then now it's Goku versus the Gi again.
It's the inward versus the outward,
Right. And
Yeah.
so we see the insufficiency of how Tao has focused those 3 days versus how Goku focused his 3 days. And this is, of course, what
It's
his
just
can
another
buy.
accentuation of
It's
that,
not
definitely.
necessarily himself, but it's an externalization that he hasn't necessarily earned. Let's say.
Hmm. And here it's shredded to the point that it Tao's spirit is made bare such that he has no choice but to use the Dodonpa.
I really like the way that Goku reacts to it. Right. He says, "Oh well, go ahead. I will show you just how insufficient that is against me now," because he
Hmm.
knows what it is.
And so he launches it at him and he blocks it with his bare hand, saying that it won't work on him anymore, just like the
Mm-hmm.
Kamehameha wave did not work on Tao.
Right.
And that actually, this terminology, let's say, this verbiage is used somewhat frequently in Dragon Ball, where characters will say that wave or that attack doesn't work on me, right? And that's to say, right, that it's more of an understanding instead of it is in Super, or even later Dragon Ball Z, that it's more of an understanding of what those abilities even represent. Because Tao not being able to be destroyed by truth is the same way that the hero is not able to now be destroyed by malice after gaining the enlightenment that he has.
Right, and Goku's proving something because the ball saved him last time. It didn't touch his skin, right? So that malice wasn't able to get under his skin, let's say. But now he says, "Look, I've hardened my skin. This is not just it's not a fluke, right? This is real."
Mhm. And so then, in desperation, Tao summons a sword to try and chop Goku up, formulating the malice that Murasaki once formulated in his moment of desperation, let's say.
Right.
And as an expansion of that, as that next level of Murasaki here, we see Tao do the same thing. He gets the sword, tries to do that, and Upa, who's still up observing the whole fight from the Nimbus, sees this and jumps down of quite a ways, lands on his ass, uh, stands up, brushes himself off, and then runs to the tent and gets the power pole to throw to Goku.
Against Goku's wishes, right? Because he tells him, "Stay on the Nimbus. I'm going to
Yes,
handle
and
this."
again against Goku's wishes, but Goku doesn't say anything to him at this point.
Right.
But yeah, he then throws it to Goku, who uses it to break Tao's sword. And this is once again the hero being able to reclaim the ancestral power of the power pole through his inspiration of the potential heroic spirit in Upa.
Right. That's a really good way of putting it because it's like it's awarded to him almost. It's like he doesn't pull it out in this fight until it's needed, and the only time that he gets it is whenever his inspiration of that heroic spirit recognizes that he needs it and then empowers
Right,
him.
it's what he's nourished, what he's cultivated, which is this positive direction of Upa's spirit, and the growth of that is able to then rekindle his connection with the ancestral, because he hasn't touched his power pole, or he hasn't used his power pole since he first lost it to Tao. And he doesn't bring it up to Korin, which we'll see later has ramifications of its own,
Mhm.
because he's lost his connection with that. He just leaves it down there for that reason, and he finally gets it back here.
It's interesting too that that Tao pulls this sword out of a capsule, because we've talked about capsules and potentiality and inherited sort of boons. And so Tao's like, what I am, he recognizes what I am is not sufficient to challenge Goku's spirit. And so he calls to something exterior to himself, but is stored in a capsule, similar to how we've seen before. And what's in his capsule, it's just a sword. It's just an
Well,
extension of that
I
malice,
want
right?
to emphasize too that it's so antithetical to the idealized self of the world's greatest assassin to even have a capsule and a weapon to begin with. We've seen Tao murder people with his tongue,
Right.
right?
This is almost weakening him in a sense
Oh, it
because
definitely weakens him. It weakens the and I think this is what some people may complain about the series, is that he is then defeated so easily, but it's supposed to show that the spirit that Tao inhabits is so insufficient, but that the spirit will also even act in contrast to what it is supposed to be in order to deliver the malice that it is rooted in.
right, we also see a reflection here where Goku had knocked down a tree by bashing his head into it, and now Tao uses the sword to chop a tree down when he's coming at Goku, right?
Yeah, and it's also yes, and it actually cuts some of Goku's hair, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it grows back obviously in the next frame, but just to say, I do want to mention though, lastly, that the ancestral power from the power pole is what breaks the malice that is wielded by this foe. Well, not even foe, but is wielded by Tao here. And it has to be that it is the ancestral spirit which prohibits the malice of the world to take over the societal boons, let's say. It's a respect to that idea, that paying reverence towards that prevents that malice from having the edge that it does,
Mhm.
or that it would.
Right, and we've talked about this a few times now, and it gets more articulated the more it happens that Goku always uses the power pole to break people's swords, right? It's that blunted weapon versus the edged weapon that always seems to come up with Goku, and this is an extension of that, showing that this supersedes the malice wielded by the world's greatest malicious assassin,
Pretty
right?
sure this is the last time we see it, though.
Yeah, I think this is the top of that process, right?
Yeah.
Where this is the ultimate breaking of the sword symbolically, right?
It's the last sword that needs to be broken, because as we've seen, that the sword is that wielding of that societal technological innovation, right?
Mm.
And especially since it's used almost always with capsules, I think is how it's, yeah, pretty much. And so the last spirit that can wield that technology, that societal technology, as a threat in this way is Tao. The villains that we see after this, they're past that. They don't need to wield that kind of power over the technological innovation of the ancestral spirit.
Right, we're gonna step spiritually far beyond that, right?
Further beyond, and that's exactly what this is. And that's why this is kind of an end for so many parts. This is like the first mega arc of Dragon Ball ended after we get through Baba.
Yeah, it's great how Red Ribbon ties a nice little bow on top of all of the stuff that we've been setting up.
And so let's finish it up then. So the last thing we see is that Tao, he's running out of options, and he does think to himself as he's trying to stall that he should run up the tower and drink the super spirit water as well. He distracts Goku by launching a rock at Upa and then runs up the tower himself as Goku's distracted trying to save him. Now, I will say a couple things about the rock. It Goku passes it first, and then he turns around to go save Upa, and as he tackles Upa to the ground, it hits the TP behind them and destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
To say that the potential heroic spirit in Upa's interaction with Malice has already destroyed the equilibrium that he and his father had set up before, and now something new must be created.
Right, and Goku's reaction to it, what he's focused on, because this is a trick of attention. I don't want to get too caught up on this because we do need to go back to this whole situation. But like the what Tao does is he directs his attention towards Upa, right? With the rock. And so Goku's reaction this time it happens is to immediately go and save Upa from the rock. And then the rock uh moving uninhibited destroys the TP, right? One thing I don't think we talked about is the impetus for Tao to climb the tower because Tao questions Goku about it and and Goku says he really did drink the water and that he wasn't hiding, right? Because Tao thinks that Goku was hiding from him this whole time, right? And it's
I'm just hiding.
there's several things that he says actually in this part that I really like because Tao thinks that those 3 days, that his 3 days that he spent preparing for this battle, let's say, were well used, and whenever he's meditating about it, we see that he's focusing on, oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because he'll be dead anyway. And we see how wrong he was because now Goku has enlightened him to the fact that, oh no, here's how I used my 3 days, right? Here's how my 3 nights were spent, so to speak. And so another thing that Goku says to him is, whenever I know someone's bad, I like to beat them with my bare hands because he throws the Noibo
Yeah.
aside after he breaks the sword and says, no, I'm going to beat you with my bare hands. Which is, I don't think we've heard something like that from Goku before. This is definitely a character shift.
It is a shift to where he is incorporating that shadow element, right, for the first time, and it is making him a little more brutal. But right, I think that Tao deciding to go up the tower as well, he decides it only after Goku says to Upa that he will avenge his father's death.
Mm-hmm.
And at that, I think Tao knows he's beat. And that's when he starts thinking to himself that he's pretty much out of options, right?
Right. And we get some internal monologuing from Tao starting here, right, where he's like, I was wrong about this. How, how does he say it? He's like, at this rate, I will lose. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'll do then. If it worked on him, then it's going to work way better for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. He thinks that the super spirit water enriches all spirits equally, which is to say that enlightenment will enrich all spirits equally, which is not the case.
Right. He thinks that his mode of being is enlightened.
Right. Because of his abuse of discipline, let's say.
His ability to accomplish what he wants in the world with his discipline, he's taken that to be proof that his spirit is oriented in the right direction.
Right, which is like a positive feedback loop.
Right.
So after he distracts Goku, he gloats, hanging on the tower, saying that he'll return stronger than ever. Goku remains at the bottom, telling Upa that it doesn't matter. He won't lose to Tao again.
Mm-hmm.
Goku knows that Tao, if he was to adopt the proper path now and spend 3 days reorienting himself and recreating his idealized self, perhaps he would stand a chance against Goku. But Goku knows that that's not what Tao's gonna do. He's can read his breath, let's say.
Right. He can see where he's oriented.
Hmm. And so that kind of brings us to the end as Tao ascends the tower and Goku waits down at the bottom.
And Upa just looks concerned. He's
Yeah,
like, "Wait,
Upa is
you just let him go?"
Yeah. But I think that brings us off to a pretty nice end to this episode.
Yeah.
Anything else you got to say?
No, I think that ties it up nicely.
Yeah, and it was a pretty action-packed episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you liked what you heard. Give us a like. Give us a comment. We're also on Rumble. Give us a subscribe. We also upload every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday on YouTube, and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Rumble. BitChute is just kind of it's weird. I don't like it very much. It constantly logs me out. But anyways, that's another point. So we hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
Have a good night, everyone.
The flying nimbus. Am I really ready to part with it? Why not? If you can ride it, it's yours. The flying nimbus. It can fly you wherever you want. If you can ride it, it's yours. Come to me, flying nimbus. Where is that cloud? Oh, there it is. It's about time. She's a beauty, isn't she?
Whoa! Look, Mama, is it Nito? Yeah, how strange.
Don't be afraid. She's as sweet as candy.
It's a white puppy. Do you mind if I have a taste?
You don't eat it, you little baboon.
What does this thing do?
If you can manage to sit on this cloud, it can fly you wherever you want.
Hey, can I try to ride it now?
Sure, why not? But I must warn you, you must be pure of heart to ride this cloud. Yep, otherwise it won't let you on it. It's picky that way.
Wow.
Here, let an old man show you how it's done.